Welcome back to Columbus State Facilities Management DIY page. Check out part 2 of our basic cabinet building series, where Brian Seeley shows us how to assemble the box frame.
Okay, I'm back. So I took the dado blade off and I got the box all laid out here to get ready to put it together, glue it and staple it together. And then after we're done with that, we'll start working on the face frame. So first off, cup of coffee. So what we're going to do is, like usually what I like to do when I'm putting a cabinet together is I'll do the bottom, which is the dado part, because it has that support from the bottom, so it's easier to put together and have it hold together while you're putting the clamps on. So I'll just run a bead of wood glue into that groove and one into that. And my clamp's ready to go. Now, this plywood, like I said, was a finished one side. You can get them finished both sides, but I'm cheap. So you want to make sure that your finished side is up. I mean, you can do it facing down so that, from outside, but usually on a wall cabinet, you don't really look up underneath, so you look more from the inside. So I make sure my finished side is facing towards the inside of the cabinet. Then I just place my first side in and push it. Now, my tops and bottoms ended up being ripped just a hair under the size of the cabinet, which that's fine. Typically they're going to be smaller anyways because you'll be putting a back piece on anyways, but what you just want to make sure and do is whatever side you decide you want to be flush with your face frame, make it consistent on the other side too, so you don't want gaps on one side and not on the other. So I'm going to put this in here. Now put this one in, and because I have it, I know that on the bottom it's flush because everything's being pushed down. That bottom side will be the front of our face. Then I just take my clamp one there. And clamp one on the bottom. So now your cabinet, for all intents and purposes, will stay together. So what I'm going to do is verify that my front isn't protruding. So it actually is a little bit. So at that point, I make sure that those are flush. Sorry that my back was to you, but basically what I did is just kind of pounded this back so that this edge here is flush. A little bit more. All right. So now what we'll do is, now that we have that clamped, like I said before, just so that we can keep this moving, I'm going to go ahead. I have a nailer, a brad nailer. I'm going to go ahead and put some nails in this just to help hold it together. I can always fill those holes later with wood putty if I can find it. And I just flip it over. Alright, so I happen to have an air nailer. You can always, if you don't have those types of tools or anything, you can always, you could either just hand nail it with finish nails, or you could screw it. There is a small head finish screws, trim screws that they call them, you can use. Or if you have the time, like I said, typically what I do is I'll get this all set up and glue and clamp it, and I don't even do anything. I just let the glue do hold it together. All right, so now I got the four corners pinned. Take my clamps off. I take my square and I square down from that first pin, and then I mark just a couple little ticks so that I can get 4 staples down through the whole thing. And then it should be really good and secure by the time that glue dries. All right, sometimes if you don't get it perfectly centered, you could get a little blowout on your nail. And that's why when I do, if you are using a nailer, I typically err on the side of the unfinished side, so that I'll kind of point, I'll kind of take the nail gun and kind of, tilt it a little bit so that it kind of leans. You want it fairly perpendicular to the piece you're nailing, but I always then do maybe just a tad little bit askew to the bottom side. So if we do have a blowout, it's going to be on the unfinished side. I didn't have any blowouts. Okay, so now we can set it up now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our top piece on, and again, finish side down. I always just do a dry fit first. Make sure everything is fitting well. All right, so what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead, everything seems to be fitting well, and I'll go ahead and put some glue on, clamp it, and throw some nails in it. Couldn't find my glue. Doesn't take a whole lot. You don't want to put so much out that it really oozes out. You might get a little bit, that's okay. Doesn't take a whole lot for this to bond. I leave it a little bit away from the ends, the edges, just so that it doesn't squeeze out too much. Okay, again, I'm checking to see which side is going to be my front face, so that I know that this is the side that I need to clamp flush with the front. Once you get that one, then the back one, all you got to do is just put the clamp on. Sometimes on this rougher type wood, they don't mill it at the factory quite as precise as they do, say, number 1 grade wood. So I've found that this stuff here is just a tad out of square. So, you know, it's not a perfect cabinet. Be great for a cabin. Got that one flush. This one moved on me just a tad. Okay, I'm flush now. I'm flat down. I tighten it up. My back's turning to you again here. So then I do the same thing here. I lower it down, the clamps down just a tad so that I can get my nailer up there, put my pins in. Staples, pins. This piece here also had just a little bit of a chip in it. So I purposely made that so that that was going to be my backside. It would cover with the face frame, but I try to kind of watch out for things that are, imperfections. Okay, everything looks good there. Now, what I do here is I go from the top down. That way, I'm kind of eliminating as much as possible the nail holes that will be showing on the finished surface. And if you can see, I hope you can, again, I'm kind of leaning towards so it doesn't blow out on the inside. No blowouts. Okay, now we have our box made. Now, one thing that I don't know if you can tell from this video or not, we're a little out of square. Now, typically, if you put a back onto your cabinet, that you'd have that squared up, and then you could rack the box to fit. Since I'm not doing a back, what I'm doing is I'm using these 1x3. These are going to be my screw boards. So I make sure to square those up nicely, and I put one at the top and the bottom so that I can screw into the wall. And just that little bit of area that you're going to be screwing into will tend to square that box up. What doesn't get squared, what we'll do is we'll end up squaring that with our face frame to kind of get it finished into that final square. So what I'm going to do now is get set up to make those cuts, and then we can install those.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in to part 3, where Brian shows us how to prepare the box for face frame attachment.